Great. I'm so honored and happy to be here. And I just want to start off by saying, of course, it's an honor. You just speak so highly of your audience and your community. It really warms my heart whenever you speak about them. And the fact that you wanted to connect us, that also means a lot. So it's a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them, and I feel honored to be included. So thank you for having me here.
And believe me, if you knew them, it's more a reflection of them because they are awesome, awesome people. So I'm very blessed to have them in my life. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is first, if you could explain what is it that you do, and then we'll get into your story because your story is fascinating, how it led you to where you're at.
Sure. So my primary focus is teaching women powerful in business how to also be powerful and get what they want in the bedroom. So the easy way to say it is teaching women who are powerful in the boardroom how to be powerful in the bedroom. But not all powerful and successful women are in boardrooms, myself included. As a matriarch of my company, I don't have boardrooms. It's virtual all over the country, all over the world. So that's just an alliteration to say that. The basis of my work is teaching women how to trust themselves, how to know who's trustable, how to trust those trustable people, and from there, true intimacy can thrive. And the greatest thing about it, I find, is that if a woman or anyone really is successful in one area, then all they need is sort of a bridge to bridge that gap, to bridge that blind spot, to bring success in another area. So that's primarily what I do.
Well, based on your experience and the things you've seen and obviously all the women you've worked with and or met, because obviously we were in a very big business environment in New York. I mean, is this a common issue? Because obviously this is probably something that women or people don't talk about. It's like a little hidden problem. So do you see it as an issue and why?
Yeah, I would say it is more common in big cities like New York and LA where there are ambitious women, but I know that you must know in your community who you've gathered over the weekends or whatever seminars you've been doing, that people fly from all over the world, all over the country, and that you can have someone successful in business, quote, in the middle of nowhere. She might be a little bit more of a unicorn, so to speak, in her town or whatever it may be, which can also sort of logically put that woman more in the doubting space where she doubts that a romantic partner can match her, can meet her, can give her what she desires. Because the way that I put it is, in 50 years, women will be in the majority of leadership positions. And I was taught growing up, my parents are happily married over 50 years. I was taught that I didn't need a man. And that's actually true in all areas but one. So I don't need a man to provide any financial stability for me. I don't need a man to protect me. I don't even need a man to have a child. And I also work in the queer space, so we can change pronouns, and I don't need a partner to do any of those things. But there's one space that we need partnership, and that's for our hearts. And so there are people out there that are okay with only living with their cat or their dog, or having their fancy cars, or just having a lot of friends. But usually in the back of their mind or their heart or their body, if it really comes down to it, they do wish for that intimacy, that emotional connection, that sexual connection, even just physical touch that's non-sexual. People do crave that. The body loves physical touch. And it changes our immune system. It changes our emotions. It changes our success rate. So it's interesting because I literally was explicitly taught I don't need a man for anything or a partner for anything. And I'm learning that that's not true. And the other thing that I'll say that I love about my work, absolutely love about my work, is I only work with the women. I don't work with the partners, whether they be male or female. And by only working with the women, it transforms the relationship if they're in one. usually will bring in a relationship if they're not in one. And their partners, if they're with someone, even if they're with someone for 17 years or more, their partner will usually do a 180 through my working with just the woman. I've seen it time and time again. And women who are successful in business are results driven. They're very driven. And this work is results driven as well. And so it's just the same, you know, like I said, in 50 years, we're going to be in the majority of leadership positions. If we lead in business the same way that men do, and we lead in the bedroom the same way that men do, number one, the planet's not going to change. And it's like having two masculine men in a relationship. And I use that word masculine very loosely. You know, in queer couples, in homosexual relationships, there's either usually someone who seems more masculine and someone who seems more feminine, or, which is growing, you'll have people sort of flip-flop. They just complement each other. And even in heterosexual relationships, I went out and about talking to people last night. I was talking to an Australian couple. They were beautiful, amazing, and I said to them straight up, and they're like, you're right. I was like, there are ways where she, the woman, is taking more control. Will you know, take the responsibility, take control, just take over responsibilities. And there are places where the man is just like, okay, I'll let you drive. It's cool. Traditionally, we called those masculine and feminine roles. It's outdated now. And so in all couples, all dynamics, whether they be straight, gay, queer, whatever you want to call it, it's about understanding those roles, those qualities, and being able to provide the opposite quality so that the other person can step up and actually give you what you want, right? So traditionally, the women who are successful in business that aren't successful in relationships are like me, where we're self-confessed control freaks, whether they're self-confessed or not. Like
Right.
it works in the boardroom, it works in business. We're results driven. And then we take that into relationship, and lo and behold, it doesn't work. So it's really cool because the coaching that I provide, and the skills and the tools and the seeing of the blind spots that I provide allow for that shift in perspective so that she can create the results that she wants to see, which is interesting because that's the problem that she's having is she's results driven, right? So she keeps trying and trying and it's not working. So we know the definition of insanity, right? Trying to do the same thing and expecting different results. And that's where I come in with sort of a re-education of what's actually happening. And it's the most fulfilling work I've come across. And I've done a lot of fulfilling work. So.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. A couple of things that you said that resonated with me is that, you know, fortunately, I know a ton of very successful people. And so they're from their appearance, from the outside, they're very successful. They have a lot of money. They have beautiful homes, beautiful cars, everything that most people in business are dreaming about. But they're not happy at home. And because of that, they're just not happy. They're not happy, period. So that is an important part of fulfilling, you know, having a fulfilling life, and, you know, and having joy in your heart is having that healthy relationship at home. And another interesting thing you said too, and I've heard this many times in different ways, is where you're talking about where they saw their partner do a complete 180. And I heard this and I've learned this and I've tried to use it in my life, is that a lot of people, what they try to do is they try to change their partner. That does not work. Guilty as charged, you know, it doesn't work. And what I learned, and I heard it a million times, and what I learned is you change, and what happens, you see them change. You know, you become the person that, you know, that is the type of relationship that reflects the type of relationship you want, and you do that from a pure place and with a pure heart, and crazy things happen, and all of a sudden you see that change. So I've seen that in my life, and so it's true. So you're you know, right on.
Yep.
So let's go into your story.
Sure.
It's an amazing story, and I'd love for you to share with the
Yeah, well, I'll share a little bit of my work background, my experience background to start off with the story. I know I don't look it, but I'm way less than half a year away from turning 40. So if my numbers don't add up, now you know I'm not 20, even though I look it. So actually, at age 14, I started leading spiritual retreats for like 18-year-olds. And just at that time, really hoping that they wouldn't find out how old I was. I grew up in a spiritual home, but also a religious home, and they are separate. They don't usually go together in today's day and age, but they were going together. I was very blessed in that way. I did kind of the usual thing where I kind of lost faith and got mixed up and, things that teenagers get mixed up in. But I always knew from a young age that I was meant to help people. It's interesting enough, too, is that I realized that from age 4, in fact, I started listening to Dr. Ruth, which some people might know who she is. She's America's sex therapist from the 80s and 90s. My parents thought I was asleep, and they would always have the radio show on when I was not asleep. And at age 4, I was listening to all this sex education and sex therapy, and I didn't know that it was sex, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And, mark my words, in 12 months, I'll have a more public platform to do exactly that, right? To give sex advice either on the radio or a podcast or a television show. We'll get there. But, what happened was I studied psychology because I knew that that was the way to help people, got a BA in psychology. I spent 10 years working in social work, also as a sex educator. I had 2 years experience as a sex educator, as a social worker. And, it was in my late 20s that I started to think about, like, what's actually happening? Where does creativity come from? What's this? There's larger thing. There's got to be something that connects us, which now we would call God, source, the universe, whatever. But I'd fallen away from that spirituality. There was no sort of programming or anything for me that was in that area. So I had lost track of that. And it was at that moment that I was diagnosed with my 3rd deadly diagnosis. So I was born with severe asthma and allergies, which means my whole life, the air could kill me because I could have an asthma attack. My food could kill me because I could eat a particle of a peanut and have my throat close, anaphylactic shock, and die. So I've been living with that my whole life. The air could kill me and tried to all the time. My food could kill me. I would go to the hospital, almost die. Went through my 9 lives as a cat already, right? And then what happened was I was burnt out in social work 3 times. As a side note, when I was searching for something bigger, I went out for a girls' night out. I went to go see this band, and interestingly enough, the name of the band is called Hidden People. They don't exist anymore, and I'll tell you why that's interesting in a minute. Some people might know what Hidden People is, but most people don't. I didn't know what it meant until like 8 years after the fact. So anyways, I was at the top of a flight of stairs, reached for the non-existent railing as I lost my balance and fell off the side of the flight of stairs onto my head, onto the concrete. And I did suffer a concussion. At the same time, they found a 3rd pre-existing deadly health diagnosis. And that was that I had a hole in my near my C2 vertebrae in my spinal cord. And I kid you not, the prognosis was that I could turn my head the wrong direction, just shake my head no, and die. That's literally like what the doctors told me. So like Chicken Little, the sky was falling, right? It's like, oh, air could kill me, food could kill me. Now I could just, ticking time bomb, just stop living, right? So so that's when I, pun intended, fell into the Spiritualist Church of New York City. And they believe you create your own reality, your thoughts create your life. They believe in Reiki and healing hands, and they're most known for being the psychic medium church. So I was raised Catholic and spiritual, but knew nothing about chakras or psychic stuff. And I was like, yeah, right. Like I don't even believe in that. I only knew like Sylvia Browne on Montel Williams, which was just like really intriguing, but also terrifying. I don't know if anyone remembers Sylvia Brown. But it was through there. What got me actually going to psychic school, which I did go to psychic school, was there was a flyer for psychic development, and the flyer said, "You are psychic," and I'm like, yeah, right, okay, but this flash came in my mind of some precognitive dreams that I had. Precognitive dreams are you dream something while you're asleep, and then it happens when you're awake. And I had some really intense, specific, way far out there precognitive dreams. Just as an example, not seeing or thinking of at all my high school best friend's sister in 10 years. I'd never thought of her in 10 years because we weren't even friends. I had a dream about her. As I woke up, I rode my bike in Brooklyn to brunch, and who should be standing outside the brunch venue but this very same woman that I had a dream about. And not only that, but she had just come from upstate. She moved to the Bronx and was having brunch in the middle of Brooklyn, which means it took her an hour and a half to get to the Bronx to Brooklyn that one day for brunch. And she was in front of the brunch. I mean, my jaw dropped. I couldn't even believe it. So that's just like one example. So it's like, oh, there might be something to this. Well, in my psychic development, in the very first guided meditation that we had to meet our spirit guide, I was shown this thing that was like, do you remember when you were 17 and whenever you had something emotional, you were just all verklempt, like you'd be shaky, you couldn't get the words out at all, like you were just stuck, like you just got frozen. And I was like, well, I didn't remember that, but now that you're bringing back the memory, I do remember it. And this guide said to me, well, that's what you're going to do now. Like you're really scared in this space. Because I was very weirded out and scared, and it was unfamiliar territory, going to this white light place to meet a spirit guide. Like it was all really far out there for me. And I was actually physically shaking and crying during this experience because it was so foreign to me. I was so afraid. And this guy was like, you're shaking and crying now, but you're going to help millions. And I came out of that and I was like, maybe I'll charge $35 on the side for a reading and continue being a social worker, right? Well, fast forward, being a professional psychic for 10 years, an award-winning psychic. I'm on the top 10 list of New York psychics by Time Out New York. Even though now I live in LA, and I did last year, I won Best Psychic in Manhattan for 2018. So that's how much magic there is there, and my readings are not $25 an hour. So
or how crazy New York is.
Right. Exactly. It's a combination. So, as I was doing the readings, I was also doing coaching. I was teaching people how to trust their intuition. And I developed this brand called Trust Yourself, which is teaching people how to trust their intuition. It's not to teach people to become a psychic medium, although some people go on to do that. They're just drawn to that. But it's, what is intuition? It's that little voice inside of you, that gut voice, that gut feeling, that illogical voice that says you should take the leap, even though the money's not there, even though people are naysayers. It's the voice of creativity, God and source coming through and saying, build it, they will come, right? And logic says no. So, the Wright brothers who made the plane, they followed their intuition because everybody said it wasn't impossible. The person who actually created the first car motor had engineers working for 2 years saying that it was impossible to create this machine. And for 2 years, he was like, no, I've seen it. It's a vision. I know it's possible. And he paid this top group of engineers 2 years. They kept coming back and saying no, but he said, I can see it. So, Thomas Edison and the light bulb, right? Like it took him 1,800 fibers to find that one fiber that worked in a light bulb that would create light. So without these people following their intuition and being tenacious about it, we wouldn't have light, we wouldn't have cars, we wouldn't have airplanes. So I teach people how to follow that voice. And it's super essential now because all of our systems need to be rebuilt. What do I mean? I mean, you name a system that works, any kind of system that works, that one system will stay. But we don't have systems that work that are sustainable right now, right? So it's really important that we get our unique voice out there, that we change the system. So I had this brand of trust yourself probably now for like 8 or 9 years. And then I married someone that I didn't trust.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And, we don't have all day. I am an open book. I don't hide anything. But, I was 31, looking at my biological clock. Everybody loved him. I'll call him Brandon. His name did start with a B. So it was like B and B, Betsy and Brandon, we love it. He started to work for me right away. He volunteered to redo my website. He actually did it as a surprise without my permission. He just redid my website and did an amazing job. And, my family loved him. They thought like he was like improving my life, all of this. But I kept ignoring the red flags that my intuition was giving me. And I had this is what I teach people also, is like, you will know even before you go on the first date if this person is trustable and if they're, quote, right for you. And I had seen him on the dating site for over a year, did not contact him because I could read between the lines and I knew he was a perfectionist. And me and perfectionists, we just don't mesh well. And that was the last relationship I had, ended because he was a perfectionist, and it just kind of blew up. So I ignored that. 30 seconds before I meet him in person, I'm around the corner, about to turn the corner to meet him for the first time. I heard a voice in my head that said, if he's wearing all black, he's not the one for you. Well, you can guess what he was wearing, right? We're all smart enough here to know what he was wearing. A couple hours later, we're riding our bikes, having a great time. And I just thought to myself, gee, I really wish that I was a person strong enough to follow those tiny illogical voices, right? But I was already caught. I was already caught up in the looks and the heart and the turn on and the, he was super focused on me. I loved the attention. It was like everything else in the room disappeared. It was addictive. Well, he was threatened by my power. By the time I left, we were together for 6 years, married for 2. My business had gone from, high 6 figures to getting into debt, because every time I would get into my power, I was criticized, I was brought down, I was screamed at, things were thrown in the room. It got really, really bad. And so I left and I had to rebuild everything. And I spent 2 years straight really taking a look at hardcore, like, how did this happen? I was taught to be a self-sufficient, strong, powerful woman. I was taught that I didn't need a partner. And then all of a sudden I marry someone who winds up being emotionally abusive. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, what is going on? So a lot of inward looking, a lot of self-healing, I interviewed my friends, I interviewed my family, I interviewed other people that this happened to. And then I started to see a lot of what I was missing. Number one, trusting the wrong people, right? Hoping that they'll change, trying to get the partner to change. I married potential, right? Like you said, we try to get the partner to change. He was spiritual, he was conscious, he owned his own business at first and then came to work for mine. So he was entrepreneurial minded, and I was like, okay, well, I see how he can change. I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to work with him, right? No. No, that won't work. Take it from me, a professional who tried for 6 years, does not work. At the same time, now, after I got out of that and I was doing all this investigation, what actually happened was I started to unusually get really angry at certain spiritual communities. And it turned into this pet peeve, into this raging fire. And what is true is that there is a growing and existing community following branch of spirituality that goes into relationships, into intimacy, and into sexuality. Like it's a very big field. And in that field, people talk about the law of polarity, which they distill down to masculine and feminine. What I saw happening in a wide range of these communities is taking random men and random women and putting them in workshops across from one another and having them do intimacy exercises. Not sexual, okay, but intimacy exercises. And I just started to get so upset because if you are doing that and you're not first teaching how to trust and how to know who's trustable, you're doing more damage than good. And so it was making me crazy, that, or they'd be in, a lecture and someone would stand up, a woman would stand up and be like, well, my husband or my man, do. And they would try to answer the question, but they would never say, is he trustable? Do you trust him? So if you try to do that intimacy work with someone that you're not trusting, you will never be able to get to the place that you want. Because if you think about it, let's say you get into a car with an Uber or Lyft driver and you don't trust that driver. Are you ever going to relax in that car? Never. It's going to be a horrible ride for you. And probably a lot of us had an example like that. I haven't had that specific example, but I'm sure it's a common one, So it's the same thing in relationship. If you are in a relationship or you attract people and are getting into relationships with people that you don't trust, and then you try to do this intimacy work, then you're going to be avoidant of relationships because you're going to say, I tried that and it didn't work. So you need to have that base. So then I was like, oh, I see what the universe is asking me to do. It wants me to take my past of working with relationships, working with sex education, listening to all that Dr. Ruth, my psychology background, my social work background, and my brand Trust Yourself, bring it all together and bring it to other powerful women like myself. I have a whole team of women, been self-employed for 9 years now in less than a month, having my business for over 10. And bringing that to the women. And what I did was I brought this work into my existing coaching clients, and it was immediately transformative. Their partners were shifting after only a few weeks. And obviously sex was increasing, so was trust. Now these are with people who were with people who knew that their partner was trustable. They just didn't know how to trust, right? And so I knew that I had hit on something because I had never seen such a fast and powerful transformation in my clients before. And then on top of that, just like you said, your audience is very powerful. There's a lot of powerful women in your audience. I realized, wow. And the successful people who just aren't happy. Imagine those successful people maintaining that level of success and being happy. And imagine the ripple effect that will have on everyone that they work with, everyone that works for them, everyone that they sell to, everyone that their products and services touch. That is what really turns me on, of being like, okay, right. If she's in charge of a whole bunch of people, we kind of have all had this experience before where we're just like, that person really needs to get laid.
Yeah.
And you think that about your boss too, you know? So imagine if your boss, or if you are the boss and you are getting laid, imagine what changes will happen in the world. It's if you want to think about it concretely, think about how you feel the first week after a completely relaxing vacation. how much brighter the world feels, how much more possibility there feels like, how much you're more likely to say yes to new projects, how much more likely you're able to give people some space and room so they can really be themselves. That's similar results to the work that I do, except more on a permanent basis.
Well, I'm sure you've seen this, Betsy, but wouldn't you say it's true that when people are happier and healthier mentally, that there's a correlation to their level of success as
Yeah.
well? You know, you get right up top in your head and in your heart, you know, success flows better. It flows easier and it flows more enjoyably.
Yeah, I would say it flows easier and more enjoyable, but the caveat to that is, as you said, not all successful and rich people are happy. They're not joyful, and not all poor people and unsuccessful people are miserable either, right? So in one sense, in a holistic sense, absolutely. For instance, I have a money coach, right? So I have areas where I'm getting help, and when I'm done with her, I'm going to get someone else to coach me because there's always someone I can learn from, right? So my money coach says, if you are doing your work and you're not making money, because I'm a spiritual teacher, number one, right? You're not actually spiritual. You have a blind spot because you're not supporting yourself. So sales are a spiritual practice. If you consider yourself successful in life but not happy, you are not actually successful. If you are trying to fulfill your loneliness with cars and houses and, let's say, even cats and dogs and giraffes and Bentleys, or just your own version of that, whatever it is, your own little plot of paradise, yet you can't let anyone in, you think all men are fill in the blank, cheaters, liars, or you say, well, no one can take care of me, I don't even need someone to take care of me, why would I want to let someone in? Or, you're like, I tried that before and it never works. You're not actually successful. You're not having a successful life. And your energy is creeping out to those around you. And, I don't blame them, but who's going to want to date you in that state? They're like, well, I'm fine. I've got all of my stuff, It's not a very attractive place to be.
No, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Betsy. So you touched on some of them. So some of the people that work with you, what are some of the things that they can expect? What some, other changes in their life? Obviously, a little more secure, happy, fulfilled, more intimacy, more ecstasy.
Mm-hmm.
What other things?
Usually health will improve. So even if you're very healthy, you will tend to get healthier. I know for me, when I got into this work, I am now below my high school weight, which I had never I'd never intended to lose weight. I was fine with where I was. And when I was trying to lose weight, I never reached below a certain point. I would give you the number, but it won't make sense to people because I'm 4'9¾". I'm like almost Dr. Ruth size. She's actually, I think, 4'8" or something like that, which I was surprised to find out. If you don't know who she is, totally look her up. She's got I think on Amazon, or no, I think Hulu, there's a new documentary out on her. So
She's awesome and
yeah.
hilarious.
She's amazing. She's just turned 90. So this 90-year-old still talking about sex is amazing. So, when I was trying to lose weight before, I couldn't. So losing weight or getting in optimal physical health is definitely a probability. I don't make promises because you're the one that has to do the work, right? I can't do the work for you. But, family relationships improving and or getting to a state where you are feeling good about the state of your family relationships. So I'm going to pull out a word that will probably, it might polarize the listeners, and I'm okay with this, is, a lot of what we wind up working on is codependency. And I'm going to break that down and why. And you actually brought it up, interestingly enough, without using the word, but we break the patterns of codependency, which means that any emotional state that you desire can be achieved regardless of the outside situation. So if you want to feel free, you'll feel free. If you want to feel happy, you'll feel happy. If you want to feel cherished, you'll feel cherished. If you want to feel strong, you'll feel strong, outside of what other people are doing, saying, or feeling. Which is, again, interesting because usually the people that come to me already have that skill set in business, right? A lot of times we'll have that mentality of like, you say it won't happen, that definitely means it will happen. I'm going to make it happen, right? And a lot of those people, which is amazing ambition. But like what you said about trying to get the other person to change, when we break it down in almost a mathematical way. And a lot of this stuff, that's why it's saying, I'm like, we're results driven. You can break it down to a practical, understandable, non-woo way. That's pretty much what I'm famous for. I'm famous for the how-tos, or no bullshit, and also for making things that seemingly are woo or hard to understand really, really concrete. So if you're trying to change your partner, then underlying that is, well, if only my partner, fill in the blank. If only my partner was happier, if only my partner made more money, if only my partner would choose the restaurant sometimes, or ask for directions when we're driving. These are like literal things that people come up with. If only my partner would finally get the gig that my partner always wanted. If only my partner would meet me emotionally. If only my partner would get a therapist or coach. If you're saying, if only my partner would fill in the blank with anything, then I will, that's a form of codependence. And the erroneous way to go about that, the way that doesn't work, is trying to get them to get the gig, trying to get them to ask for directions, trying to get them to a therapist, trying to coach them, heal them, encourage them, put the pamphlet out to say like, here's a men's group, like leaving it on the table, either, assertively or passive aggressively. It does not work. And that's what you were saying, is that when you shift yourself, that's when you actually see. And that's why I get so excited about it, is because I want to be in control just as much as any other successful woman. And this actually, not so secretly, does put you in control, just not in the way that you've been going about it. So it makes you feel more in control of your life, which is not anything to shy away from wanting. That's what, it doesn't mean stability. I mean, not usually the women that come to me, but another group of people that have come in the past. Like there's this wave of people that came, and I was like, what is it you want? And they're like, I want financial stability. And I'm like, okay, you name one person on the planet who has guaranteed financial stability, and I will drop the mic. And no one has been able to name any single person who has guaranteed financial stability. So it's like, okay, if that's not what you want, what if you develop trust to know that you'll be okay no matter what? So that's also a side effect of our work together, of being like, okay, no matter what, I know I'll be okay emotionally, financially, physically, relationally, without having to isolate, right? Without having to just be with the cat in the car, Yeah.
That's pretty sad.
Yeah, it is. And it's more common, right? I mean, myself right now, I work for myself. I live by myself. I'm an open book. Am I in the happy sex-filled marriage? No. But in my dating experiences since I left my husband, I can sure tell you I put these things to work. I can sure tell you that they work, and they work immediately, and that each one of my relationships that I've had, which has only been 2, because I'm highly discerning, because trustable partners aren't, a dime a dozen. They're really not. These two were very trustable, and they were the most, and hands down, the most healing relationships I had ever been in.
Wow.
And I am more than convinced that they are preparing me for the next one. So, I'm very isolated. I literally just have my cat here, right? So it's easy to become that isolated person. Even if you go to the office, just go to the office, come home, have a glass of wine, watch Netflix, go to sleep. Maybe on the weekends you go out, maybe you don't. One thing that needs to happen for someone to work with me is they need to have an urgency. They need to have a desire to break out of that pattern, right? Because it's harder to break out of a pattern than it is to just go through the motions. Maybe that's not your exact pattern. Maybe you go to the gym and then you go home and go to sleep and you don't drink wine, right? But you're not talking to anyone at the gym, And it's harder to break those patterns. I cannot provide motivation for anyone. I don't even believe in motivational speaking. Inspiration, I've got that up the wazoo. I've got stories from my own life, from my clients' lives. I can tell you what's worked for other people. But you have got to say, I don't want to be 70 and living like this. I want, or maybe you're in a partnership and you're just not having sex, or you're not having sex as often as you want, or you're always butting heads, or maybe you're at the brink, if that person is trustable, you will know, or I'll help you figure it out. I will definitely help you figure out if this will work in the future. Some people get into coaching with me and break the patterns of codependence, and then suddenly realize that their partner's not interested in breaking the patterns of codependence. So we're together for at least 6 months, me and these clients, right? So you get me through that difficult time. You get access to me. And I offer all of my clients 24-hour access to me via email. I always get back to them within 24 hours. And I highly encourage people to use that. They get in a crunch. They need to share. Like, oh my gosh, my partner said this. I'm not sure how to respond. You just email, and I'm like, all right, let's figure this out. It's a lifesaver. Sometimes people are like, well, I don't need that. And then as soon as they get into coaching and they send a few emails, they're like, oh my gosh, this is invaluable. I can't believe I was going to say no to this, So
And
whether
you never
you're
know when crap hits the fan.
Exactly. And to have a lifeline there, to have somebody who is literally, this is pretty much all I'm focusing on now, is you as a client. And to know that, like, at any time you can reach out and be like, I need help with this. How do I navigate this? It's not exactly real time. It's not text, it's email, right? But a lot of times, how I'm looking at my email all day long, just like you are, So as long as I'm not in a meeting like this, and yeah, there are days where today's back-to-back meetings, right? But 6:30 comes and I'm not in meetings anymore. And it's not only is it easy for me, but it's actually very pleasurable to be there for people. It's my dharma, right? It's my purpose. It's my purpose to be there for people when they need me.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell those who are listening, Betsy's got an amazing heart. And for me, that's most critical. What I've learned is the quality of your life has a lot to do with the quality of the people you associate with.
Oh yeah.
I think that was one of the things that, bonded us, is that it was your heart and your pureness. So we wouldn't be talking in right now if that wasn't the case. So let me ask you, because I see the time, and I want to respect your time, because I can be very selfish when it comes to my group. I want to keep giving them. But if there was any nugget that you could give to them, because some people will contact you, some people won't, but I'd like to leave them with something of value, some nugget that maybe most women that are listening to this will and here's another thing too, guys, the guys that are listening, maybe have your women watch this as well. Don't push them to do it. Again, that's codependency, you
Yeah.
know. But again, because I think, again, at the end of the day, it's about, we're people that are watching this are very driven, success-minded, driven people. But without that peace, without that happiness, without that healthy relationship, none of that matters.
Right.
It really, really doesn't. So you can actually, with the right tools, you can have it all. You really can. You can have it all. And I believe, my beliefs, God wants that for us. We're not put here on earth to be punished. He wants the good things and us to have a good life and to be happy. And that's why those tools are out there.
Yeah.
But if you don't use them, if you're trying to hammer a nail with your fist, you're knocking your head against the wall, but there's tools out there that make it easier and make it more efficient and make it more enjoyable and will get you to where you're trying to get, which, in that example, hammering the nail, that's your goal, that's your outcome. You can do it, with the right tools, you can do it. So it's the same thing. So with that being said, what little nugget can if possible, I hate to put you on the spot like this.
No, I love being put on the spot. It's awesome. Well, you did take a lot of the words out of my mouth, right? That whatever it is that you want to achieve, you can achieve. Nothing is outside of your control. You just need the tools to do it. This is going to sound far out there, and it is far out there. But someone taught me how to bend spoons with my mind, so I can do that. Someone also literally taught me how to walk on fire. So I did that this past New Year's. I walked on 10 feet of hot coals, no hot spots, no blisters, no burns. When I came across my coach, and she teaches how to move from 6 to 7 figures and beyond, I said, well, if someone taught me how to bend spoons with my mind, someone taught me how to walk on fire, I just need someone to teach me how to make 7 figures, and I can do that. So that's what I'm going to extend to you all watching, is that you learned how to get success in business, and now you can learn how to get success in relationships. But just like you said, John, that you need the skills, you need the tools, you need the guidebook to do it. And so if you're hungry enough, which you're hungry enough in business, if you're hungry enough to actually reach the new definition of success, and the new definition of success is how you feel. I'm your woman. If now is not the time, when is the time? We also know that this affects your immune system. Your emotions, it's not woo-woo, right? Your emotions affect your immune system. They affect how quickly you age. The people who live the longest and the happiest have great relationships, right? So if not now, when? How much longer are you going to continue to suffer for when all of the tools are waiting for you? I'm waiting for you. Like, you are the person that I help, period.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how can people get a hold of you?
My website, it's my name, BetsyLeFae.com, BetsyLeFae.com. And you're welcome to apply for coaching. We can set up a free coaching evaluation to see if I'm a good fit, see if you're a good fit. Believe me, I am interviewing you as much as you're interviewing me, because if we're going to spend 6 months together, I want to make sure that we can move forward together. I only coach people who are coachable. So if you just want to try to do it your way, just go do it your way. If you are ready to do it a different way, no matter what, and you're ready to see those results, come on in. I'm ready for you.
Betsy, thank you so much. I appreciate you, doing this and sharing this with my group. Again, they're amazing people. I hope some people will contact you, because I know, I know that there's people out there that definitely need something like this. And I am a huge believer in coaches. I have several coaches, and it has really helped me fast track success. It's helped me fast track my personal life. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, and Tony always talks about success leaves clues.
Yep.
Find somebody that is successful at what you want to be, and they have that roadmap. They've already been there. So that's where a coach is invaluable. But you said something very important, and if I could, recommend this to the group, if you do contact Betsy, go in with an open mind, go in with an open heart, and the way you've been doing things have led you to where you are today. And you wouldn't be contacting Betsy if you were happy with the way things are. So, like I said, go with an open mind and an open heart, and be willing to learn, be willing to try, be willing to experiment, because it's not working. And unfortunately you're in that spot, but it doesn't mean that that you're going to stay in that spot. So with the right coaching, the right tools, and the right resources, you can make anything happen. And I wish that for everybody that's listening. I wish everybody peace, happiness, love, success, all the things that you dream about, all the things that you want. And again, like I said, Betsy is a gem. She is a beautiful woman. She's got a heart that is big as a house. She's very, a pure woman that just wants to make a difference and help people. So if that's your need, please contact her. And again, your website is?
BetsyLeFae.com.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.